Erev Torah B'Tai, we're here, Erev Yom Kippur, B'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow we're going to be going into Yom Kippur, tomorrow night. What time is Mincha, 6 o'clock? You don't know. I think we said 6, but I don't know. Maybe he changed it. I don't know.
5:30.
5:30?
He didn't say it.
Yeah, 5:30.
I spoke to him about it. Okay, whatever. We'll figure it out. We'll get to it. So B'ezrat Hashem, I want to tell you a couple of things, that we missed yesterday regarding the one thing I want to tell you, about the children. I told you, right, that the children should fast or they shouldn't fast depending on the age and all these things. So there's one thing I want to tell you, that I used to see every year. Maran, Rabbi, I was with him on Yom Kippur. I was there with him. Many years I was there. So I remember one thing he always used to do, on Yom Kippur. You know what it was? Listen to this. He used to, after we finished Shachrit, right? Now, they started over there, Shachrit, 6:30, on Yom Kippur. That was a minhag. That was a custom, Some people do nets also, a little bit earlier. Anyway, right, the rabbi didn't do nets so much, he wasn't really into nets so much, The only time he did nets was Hoshana Rabbah and Shavuot, because we're staying up all night to learn. So there he did nets, but the rest of the year, generally, he didn't do nets. He wasn't into it. Okay, it's a different discussion. I'm not going to get into that now. But anyway, right, what I want to say is that after Shachrit, what time was it on Yom Kippur after Shachrit? Maybe 8 o'clock, I don't know. If they start 6:30, right? About an hour and a half. Whatever it is, The first thing he would say, to the kahal, you know what it was? If you have small children at home, go feed them. They're hungry. They cannot wait for you, to stay here until the end of Musaf, until 12 o'clock. They're hungry. What are you going to do? Leave them there. Okay, if your wife is home, she can feed them. Okay, good, right? Baruch Hashem. But if, let's say your wife is also, whatever, it's not there. So somebody's got to go and feed them, He used to tell you, go feed them. Because the children cannot wait, It's not, it's not a game. There's a story in the Gemara like this, right? About children. What's the story? It says, right, that there was one man who was going on the road, right, with his daughter. Whatever it was, right? Yeah, daughter. So, or son, whatever it was. So, it was hot. Sun, sweltering sun. And the child says to the father, he says, Abba, I'm thirsty, please, give me something to drink. I cannot, I'm thirsty. So Abba, he's a little bit, obnoxious, this guy, right? So what does he do, Abba? He says, wait, we're almost home, like we'll be home in a half hour. So, okay, so then, right, another 15 minutes, the son again, asks him, he says, Abba, I'm thirsty. Please, give me something to drink. The thing was, he had the water in his, in his bag, in his sack. But he was too lazy, to take it out, to open it up and take it out. That's the whole thing. So what does he do? He says, again, right, tells him, yeah, we'll be home in 15 minutes. Wait, we're almost there. Yeah. We're only a mile away. So what happened, right? Before they got home, the kid died, dropped dead, in the street, like this. Can you imagine? So the Gemara brings this down to tell you, right, that children, little children, they cannot wait for you. You got to feed them and, give them drink on time when they need to eat, 5-year-old child doesn't have strength to wait for an hour, 2 hours. He doesn't have strength for this. You understand? So you got to give them right away. When they ask you, give them something. Don't tell them, wait, let me go to Musaf, Yeah, Musaf is an hour and a half, right? On Yom Kippur. He's going to wait for you until you finish Musaf? Crazy? So the rabbi used to tell them, go feed your children now, right after Shachrit. 8:30, 8 o'clock. Go. And then there's going to be one wise guy, right? Who's going to say, right, in his head, he's going to say, but I'm going to miss the slichot. Slichot, your child is in trouble, he needs you. What are you talking about, slichot? What are you going to do? Say slichot when your child, he dies? That's what you're going to say, slichot? You're crazy. What's wrong with you? Not normal. A person like this. Some people, my rabbis used to tell me when I was young, over here, in Queens, They used to say, sometimes the Yetzer Hara comes to you from the religious side, You become too fanatic, fanatic, Too much. You go too far. Don't be fanatic in religion, Be normal. Like everybody else, Don't try to be like above everybody, I'm Chassid, Tzaddik Chassid. I do more than everybody else. This is the Yetzer Hara telling you this, because you're not normal. You don't know how to weigh, one thing against the other. You don't know how to think properly. This is the problem.
You are second person who talks like that. Because Rabbi says the same thing.
Yeah.
Learn Torah, but don't be crazy.
Yeah, don't go crazy, I tell people, all the time like this. Don't go crazy, There are some people, by the way, you can see that they're a little bit crazy. You know why? Because they dress, different than everybody else. You know what I mean? They try to be like, more religious, So what do? They go on the street, with talit, and tefillin, Why are you wearing tefillin? Is anybody else wearing tefillin besides you? So why are you going out in the street with tefillin? All day, with tefillin. What are you? Gaon Vilna? Why are you doing things like this? You know what I mean? Chassid shoteh, shoteh, idiot, a person like this. The Ben Ish Chai, by the way, writes, about this. Ben Ish Chai was a real Hasid. Nobody was like him, But the Ben Ish Chai writes like this. Listen to this, The Mekubalim, the Kabbalistim, what they do is, for Tfilat Mincha, they put tefillin, We don't put Tfilat Mincha. We don't do that, right? They put Shimush Rabbah, It's a different kind of tefillin. Large one, Looks like tefillin of Chabad, but it's not Chabad. It's a different kind of tefillin. It's large. So this is what they do, the Mekubalim for Tfilat Mincha. They put Shimush Rabbah. They put like this, So the Ben Ish Chai, he was Mekubal, he was Kabbalist, big one, big Kabbalist. But you know what? He didn't want to put the tefillin in front of everybody, in the Mincha. Why? Because nobody else is putting besides him. You know what I mean? So he's going to look like, a big shot, look at me, I got tefillin, you don't have tefillin. Ha 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 ha! You don't have tefillin, I have. Yuhara, Gava, this is Gava, no good. Person like this, He wants to be higher than everybody else. This is idiot person like this, not normal. Something not normal with him. That's the thing, so...
Show off.
Yeah, show off, yeah, exactly. Hot shot, that's exactly the point, So a person shouldn't be like that, This is not the proper way, by the way. It says in the Gemara, in Bava Kama, what it says about this? That whoever behaves this way, chayav benidui. We excommunicate him, So that's what we do with a person like this, Wants to be more religious than everybody, to show everybody, oh, look at me, I'm better than everybody else. No good. This is not good. Okay. So we're not here to talk about that, right? But anyway, right, the point is, you got to make sure you feed your kids, on time. Don't stay in the shul, until 2 o'clock, and your children are starving at home. Are you crazy? Somebody's got to go feed them. What are you going to do with them? That's one thing. Another thing I want to tell you is that, what about women, right? Are they obligated to fast on Yom Kippur? Of course. They have to also do Ta'anit. You know what I mean? Just like a man. The only difference is, right, it's not really a difference. It's really the same thing. You may think, right, that if she's pregnant or nursing, right, that she's patur, but she's not. It's not true. It says in Shulchan Aruch, right, even if she's pregnant and nursing, she has to anyway, right, do Ta'anit on Yom Kippur. No difference, right? Unless the doctor told her, that she's sick, she has a special condition or something. That's something else. I'm not talking about that. But she's just normal, normal woman. Like anybody else,
Yeah.
Question. In our days over here, we're alive. Can we trust a goy, a doctor that is a goy?
Yeah, this is a good question what he's asking,
Over here,
right?
I'm talking about over in America.
Yeah, you're asking a good question. There's also the same question, with doctor who's Chiloni, he's not religious, you know what I mean? He's like a goy, same thing. Sometimes he's even worse, by the way. Sometimes he's even worse.
It's not common, because over here, religious...
No, it's the same thing, right? Both of them are bad. You know what I mean? Right, what are you going to do? That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch, right? A person who's mechalel Shabbat, he's like a goy. So what he's not? He's better than a goy? He's not really better than a goy. It's the same thing. Okay, whatever. Anyway, right? But the point is...
What's the answer?
What's the answer? That the truth is, that nowadays, when it comes to things like this, if the goy doctor tells you, not to fast, you should listen to him. You should listen to him. But if you want to be sure, like get a second opinion, go to a Jewish doctor, somebody on Main Street, some guy with a kippah, right, over there, some Ashkenazi guy, right, Ashkenazi doctor. Okay, go to him also, if you want to, if you're not sure about it. You know what I mean? But generally, a Goyish doctor in America, he's not going to tell you something against religion. They're not like that over here. This is not the way they are. They're normal. The Goyim over here, they're more normal people. They're not so crazy like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, you should listen to him. Unless you think right that he's he's some kind of he's got something in his head. And then you can go get a second opinion. Okay, if you want to do that, okay, fine, whatever. Okay, great. So women have to fast, whether they're pregnant or nursing, they have to fast, and if it's hard for them, so what they should do, they recommend the doctors, let them just like lie in bed, all Yom Kippur. Not to move around too much, because when they move around, they lose energy, they lose strength, they get dehydrated also, Don't tell her, to go to the street and walk around, on Yom Kippur. She's gonna lose her energy like that. So if she's pregnant or nursing, she should just be home, Ashrei Yoshev Betecha, Kvud bat melech pnima. Right? That's the thing, stay home, stay in bed, and take care of yourself. You don't have to come to the shul either, by the way. Yeah, what? Every woman has to come to the shul? If woman would come to the shul, we would have no place for the men. You know what I mean? We don't need them over here. It's okay, They can stay home if they're pregnant or nursing, and let them stay home. Every woman has to come to shul? No. Who said? Women are not obligated to go to shul. They're not obligated. Who obligated them? In the old days, by the way, hundreds of years ago, women never went to shul. Today, became like a moda hadasha, new moda, Oh, now they come to the shul, the ladies, they dress up, put makeup, and put perfume, so we can smell their perfume, Woo! Okay, who needs them over here? We don't need them here, So it's okay, if they want to stay home and to conserve their energy, that's what they should do. That's the way it should be, There's a story like this, right? There's a special halakha, by the way, for this. You know what the special halakha says, right? If a woman, right, let's say she's pregnant, okay? And she smelled some food. Right? You know this halakha, right? You've heard this before. She smelled some food, What happens is that when you smell something, which is a little bit pungent, something spicy, so the smell, like leads you on, You get hungry. Right? Or you get this like feeling, You have to eat it sometimes, especially when a woman is pregnant, They have all kinds of cravings when they're pregnant, the ladies, right? So, what happens like this, right? What about if she says, after she smelled the food, tells her husband, please, give me this to eat. Please give me. I have to eat this food. Can you imagine something like this, right? So says in the Shulchan Aruch like this, right? One time we remind her, we tell her, oh, it's Yom Kippur, You remember it's Yom Kippur? And if she says, yeah, I know, but I have to eat this, like I have a craving. I cannot stop it. So we have to give her, we have to give her, the halakha says. In this case, when she's pregnant like this, we have to give it to her. Because that means that the baby, is craving that food. And if we don't give it to the baby, it may be danger for the baby. This is the thing, So here's the thing, right? We have to give it to her. Even, by the way, even if it's trefa, tarif. Can you imagine? Trefa. We have to give her anyway. Because it's dangerous. She has to eat it. Dangerous for her. She could die, if she doesn't eat. That's the thing, So here's the thing now. This doesn't happen very often, right? This is something, 1 in a million, right? When do you see something like this? Here's the thing though, right? It says over there in the halakha, that if you remind her, that it's Yom Kippur, and she says, oh, okay. It's okay, I don't want. If she does that, she overcomes, the temptation to eat the food. They say, that she's going to be zocheh to have a very kadosh child, a very holy child. Another very shy, something like that, you understand? Why? Because she overcame the temptation, to eat this food. She was strong enough, they say, because of that she's going to be rewarded. To have a son who's a tzaddik and chassid. Can you imagine something like this? So, here's the thing, right? After I learned this halakha, guess what? Somebody told me, one of the Talmidei Maran over there, right, in Yerushalayim, who was my friend, He's a dayan, he's a posek, big chacham. Good friend of mine. So, what he told me? He says, this halakha, right? This halakha about the pregnant lady. He says this is what happened to the mother of Maran. When she was pregnant with Maran, you understand? She had this craving for a food, and they reminded her, it's Yom Kippur. So she overcame the temptation, and didn't eat. So that's why she was zochet to have Maran, as a child. Now you see what happened, right? Because she overcame the temptation, she was zochet to have this big chacham, right? Gedol Ador, right? The great rabbi of the generation. Can you imagine something like this, right? So that's the way it is. Okay, there's a little bit more. I'll tell you one more halacha. Mechila, I'm keeping you, but this is the last time. We don't have any more chance, right, to say. So I'll tell you one more thing, right? That in Yom Kippur, there's one thing a person has to know, which is that it doesn't atone, Yom Kippur, if you don't do teshuvah. You have to do teshuvah, real teshuvah. Otherwise, if you just come here to pray, and do shachrit and ne'ilah and mincha, and you beat your chest, slichot, right? Chatanu, avinu, pasham. It doesn't matter if you don't do teshuvah. It's not going to forgive you for that sin, that you have. You have to do teshuvah for all your sins. So that's the thing. You got to make sure you did teshuvah. So what does that mean? That you're thinking in your head, I'll never do this again. That's it. I'm doing teshuvah. I'll never do this sin again. Otherwise, if he doesn't think like that, he doesn't forgive Yom Kippur. But there's another thing, which is if a person, right, did something to his fellow Jew, he harmed him in a way, right? He did some harm to him, whether it's physical, he beat him up, he punched him, whatever, right? Violent, the violent person, or let's say he insulted him, right? He said to him some nasty, insults, not nice, right? Or not tvarim. He embarrassed him also maybe, so he has to go. Yom Kippur is not going to forgive him unless he goes to that person, right, and apologizes, selicha, mechila, right, and he has to forgive him. This guy. If he doesn't forgive him, he doesn't have mechila. He's not being forgiven. So you have to make sure, if you did something to somebody, right? You remember, this guy, you did something to him, you pushed him, you insulted him, whatever it was, right? You gotta go and, or you stole his money, right? Whatever, right? Some people are stealing, You know how it is, right? In business, they'll tell you on 47th Street over there what's going on, right? A lot of people are stealing, there are all kinds of things going on. You got to give back the money, and you got to get mechila from this person. That's the thing, They say if he refuses to forgive you the first time, you got to go second time, third time, and bring 3 people with you, because when you bring people, he's going to be embarrassed not to forgive you. He'll forgive you more. If the people, he's going to be embarrassed, to be cruel. He's going to be embarrassed. So they say bring 3 people next time, right? Next 2 times. 3 people. If you came to him 3 times, right, and he doesn't want to forgive you, that's it, you can just leave him, That's it. What can you do, You tried 3 times, he didn't want to forgive you. He's not a good guy, he's cruel, Says the Ramah, Shulchan Aruch, a person shouldn't be cruel like that, When somebody comes to you, right, for forgiveness, forgive him, have a good heart, why are you being so nasty, Of course, he has to, if he stole your money, he has to return the money. How are you going to forgive him, right, if he stole from you $10,000, Only a Hasid does this, what I mean? So, that's the thing, A person has to be good and forgive, But they say that if it's your rabbi, that you insulted him, sometimes it happens, some people, they have a big mouth, So what do? They scream at the rabbi, embarrass him, and insult him, Tamid Chacham, Tamid Chacham. This is a very big sin, So they say, if you did this to a rabbi, to Tamid Chacham, you have to go to him even more than 3 times, or even 100 times, until he forgives you. Keep going, go back again, because the rabbi is so important, You got to make sure he forgave you. Make sure, right? He didn't. Hopefully, the rabbi was going to forgive you. So the thing is, they say, but if it says in Ramah, if a person did motzi shemra, right, on you, you're not obligated to forgive him. What's motzi shemra? He spoke lashon hara, but it's a lie. Not true. He spoke lies about you. If he spoke lies about you, right, you're not obligated to forgive him. But Hasid, anybody is going to forgive him, right? If a person is Hasid, Ben Ishcha, he's Babasali, he's Chafetz Chaim, right? He's going to forgive. Right? For sure. He's not obligated, but he should forgive, if he's a good person. He has a good neshama, right? That's the thing, He should forgive him, even for that. What can you do, right? We do the best we can. So that's the thing, So make sure, Rabbi, that, you all the cheshbonot that you have with your, with your fellow people, right? Make sure you go, right, and get forgiveness from them. If you did something to them, You know there was something there, You insulted him, you embarrassed him, whatever it was. You stole from him, whatever. You gotta do it. You gotta make it up, and settle the score. אוקיי, ברוך ה' לעולם, אמן ואמן. רבי חנן כשאומר, זה הקדוש ברוך הוא לא עוזב לישראל, לפיכך חיפה להם תורה ומצוות שנאמר מן החפץ, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה בידי.